Doo-doo.
Morgan. I am
Hello.
struggling, but I am trying.
I
How
think
is your day going?
we're all We're on the struggle bus this morning. Hello, everybody, coming to you remote, not via SatLink. There is Wi-Fi here, but I am in a cabin. So, hello, everybody. There's beautiful woods here in the Washington region. So, thanks for being here this morning. And Nick, are you excited? Because I'm thrilled. We've been trying to get this guest on for a long time, and I'm so excited.
So funny. Everything is content. Everything is content. Everything is
it's
content.
my it's my song. It's my song, man.
But this discussion could not have come at a better time. And so many sellers, when they reach out to us right now, they're like, our Q4 is looking a little dark. I have nothing in the funnel that's going to save me. And my boss knows it. So what do I do? And I apologize if you guys get a bunch of background noise. They're destroying my basement right now and putting it back together. But we will do our best. But Q4, how do you crush Q4 when we have such limited time? Because of course we're gonna have Remembrance Day, and you guys call it Veterans Day, correct?
Veterans Day in the U.S. Yeah,
And then you have the shopping season that comes in full swing. So we're on the tight deadline right now. So well, who could we possibly bring in that would
who
know?
better? Who
I
better?
know, right? Who?
Who better than the wonderful, the one and only? Please welcome her to the stage. Yeah, Leslie Venetz. Yay! Hi, Leslie.
Hi, team. Oh my gosh, I'm very excited to be here. And I appreciate that all of us are just doing our level best with our backgrounds today.
We're trying. We're doing our best, basically.
I mean, you have a lot of like wood on wood in the woods aesthetic.
There's a lot of wood here. Nick's got wood in his background. We're really trying our best today. Thank you for coming on the show. We're excited to have you here.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. It is long overdue. I'm so jazzed to be here and really hopeful and excited to deliver some tips to folks that can support a strong Q4, a strong end of year close.
Mm-hmm. You know that it was funny as Nick and I were chatting and prepping, and as we were DMing back and forth. The thing that I just couldn't escape me is that it seems like, I don't know if you've been feeling this, but it seems like there's just been a lot of noise in the last 2.5 years, but especially this last few months of noise of like, and I think like LinkedIn and being so into like social media kind of helps with finding all this noise. Like, try this tip, try this trick here, write this email this way here. This is, and we're all searching for the diet pill or the silver bullet or like the one and done sort of thing. And yeah, the only thing that, the one true ring to rule them all, basically. And unfortunately, that's not the case, right? Like, there's not one tried true regimen that just means you're going to build pipeline in your industry.
I think that there are a handful of things that work the greatest number of times that we can dig into here. But I'm with you. A lot of the content that seems to be most popular, go most viral, are those like real one-off Hail Mary. You went with the fantasy one ring to rule them all reference. I deviated to a sports reference. I don't know what's happening to me.
You're sitting in the void, so anything is possible.
I know, right? But I think that there's a time and a place for creativity. And that's something that all three of us talk about a lot, right? Like creative approaches, fun approaches. But when it gets to Q4, like 3 weeks into Q4, we're up against it. Like, we really, depending on your sales cycle, we might only have another 1, 2, 3 weeks to build that pipe that can still close in year. And I think this is the time to maybe put a couple of those fun, creative, exciting, viral ideas like cold FaceTiming on the back burner and focus on what we are sure is going to help generate pipe for you.
Mm-hmm. That's actually really interesting because it's like, all right, that was cute. That was in August. That was a fun thing to try, but like deadline's here. We actually need to close. Let's return to some fundamentals and get not, I mean, I don't know if it's like get serious about the approach, but maybe get real that we literally only have like I think 10 weeks left in the year or less, and we need to like generate some serious results now.
Yeah. Get
Yeah.
real. I think that's a good call to action, because it's not that those other things don't work, and it's not that we should abandon them, but this needs to be a time of having honest conversations with ourselves, that like suddenly deciding that you're going to become an ABM expert in the next week and try to launch that campaign to save your year, like that's not gonna be it, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Harsh reality. Wow.
I
I'm just
know.
like,
I like it.
flames coming in hot.
I like it. Nick? Oh,
He might be talking to the people ripping out his basement or us. It's hard to say.
I know.
I left my mouse on the table and somebody keeps touching it, and it's like I'm trying to go and unmute, and it's like I was like, stop touching my mouse. But no, but I think this is really live that like going back to basics call. And I think a lot of this, everybody always asks us about messaging. I almost think that this is one of those times where it's like, what about your targeting? What about your list building? What are you prioritizing? And I think that's what I'd love to hear about today is what are those basics that we're going back to that are, trial tested and ready to go that we can just count on to produce, whether it's right now or even in Q1, because Q1, same thing, January, February, like how are we setting ourselves up for success now? Because really, the sellers that we talked to in enterprise, they were planning for this in July to make sure they had a good Q4. So, let's go back to basics today.
So yeah, where like when you start, just to kind of dive in, when you think about finding or generating these leads, where do you start, Leslie? What's like the first thing that you're going to do in finding these leads? And we'll work our way from there.
Yes. Okay. We can start really, really big, because when I think about my territory and territory management and annual territory planning, I'm really looking at a pool of all of my qualified leads, right? And within that pool of qualified leads, there's going to be a group of ideal leads, those folks that are most likely to buy fastest, buy at the highest price point. So I'm going to assume that everybody on this call has been doing their darndest to get in front of what they have decided are their like ideal leads this year, right? So fast forward 3 quarters, and now I'm going to have a fresh look at that list. Maybe I'm going to drop some people from it. Like maybe I'm going to expand it a little bit. Maybe I go back and I say, oh snap, like 10 of the 15 deals I've closed this year are in financial services. Maybe I should lean into that. Clearly, that's like a strength that I have, selling to that, even if it isn't necessarily like the company ICP. Or maybe a few of the accounts that I've identified as ideal had a July year-end close. So now I know they are least likely to buy kind of out of that budget cycle. So maybe I drop them off of the list. So what I would encourage folks to do is always like start with your, qualified, your full territory, create that personal list of your ideal logos, clients that you want. And sometimes it might align with the company tiering of like A, B, C, D. Sometimes it might not. I encourage you to maybe deviate from that where required. And then now in Q4, let's talk about ways to like really tailor the folks you're reaching out to the folks likely to buy in the next couple of weeks. As Matt said, 10 weeks left, brain explode emoji.
Yeah.
That even goes with what I was saying to you this morning, Morgan. We were like, well, if I was building a list and checking it twice, how would I make sure they're worth pursuing like right now? And I was trying to go with the rhyme, but I couldn't. And so I was like, problem aware.
Not being nice, just give me your money.
More money, more problems. Yeah, I went for problem aware and looking for vendors, which kind of sucks because now you're going to be fighting procurement. or you're going to be fighting against. So that, who knows how long that would take. I went for an extreme pain, almost like turnaround, where they know that they need to do something right now, that the pain isn't just like hidden and you're connecting the hidden dots. The pain is right in front of them. They're going, oh shit, like if we don't fix this quarter, there may not be a next quarter. We may not get funding because the market has changed. So I'd look at that like turnaround type deals. I also said small deals with a history of closing fast, like those land and expand, because that's a great time to land them now. Think about it over the holiday season and start building those relationships to expand it to other departments or whatever that would look like. And then I also said, like as you said, other types of deals that just close fast. Is it because you have unique industry knowledge because of something you did before? Is it because the industry has the same workflow and the company just hasn't prioritized it yet? Could it be that your implementation team just crushes that, so it gets really good referrals and you could get introductions? But I'd really dig into that list and talk to your peers too. Like, this is the one thing I just don't get. It's 2022. I always say don't suffer in silence. But Leslie, with the groups that you work with, how often are they talking to each other and saying, these are the lists that I'm prioritizing, these are the accounts that I'm prioritizing, this is how I'm building or filtering my list? Nobody's talking. And I feel like that just sells us short.
Yeah. I mean, I think people are talking at, right? Like there's a lot of talking at. I'm not sure there's as much like talking with. But one thing that you just brought up, Nick, that I think it would be so fascinating to stay on for just a moment, is like a super niche way of looking at trigger events. And it's, what problem am I sure they have to solve before the end of the year that I know that they haven't yet solved? I don't know if anybody listening right now has tried that, and they can like drop a comment to tell us like what problem they focused on, how they found that information. Because I would love talking with, I'd love to hear from the audience, the group. But looking at, especially if you're going enterprise, which has been, where I've spent the majority of my career, looking at the CEO or board commitments that they've said by the end of 2022, we are going to deliver. And then you can track that, right? Like most of these companies are public, so it's as easy as looking at their earnings calls. Otherwise, they're releasing annual reports, updates, or maybe it's as simple as sending that email that says, in your CEO's, 2022 statement, they shared that you want to be with 12% diverse vendors by the end of the year. Looking at your last earnings calls, it seems that you're sitting around 8. Did I get that wrong? And that can open up that conversation to be like, okay, this is clearly something that's important to you to get right now. Like, you're feeling that internal sense of urgency. So it takes so much of the pressure off me as the salesperson to be like, buy now because it would be helpful. And I would really like to get into accelerator territory. Like, hey, this is something that your CEO publicly committed you to, that I know is probably going to affect your job stability, your bonus, like your esteem in the organization. Let's create a plan together to get you on board and to get this solved in the next 10 weeks. So I think those are kind of fun little trigger events.
That's also interesting because it kind of blows. I would say I've been interested to hear this concept from sellers. As a marketer, I never heard this from marketers. But as from sellers, I hear this concept of dead months. And I'm like, what's that about? And what I continue to sort of hear in the background, which you're sort of just kind of blown apart in specific ways, is that there's no good reason to reach out, right? That the seller's reaching out because because I need to sell, basically, because you have money and I have a product I think you should use and you should buy it from me. And here it's
Morgan, I have the best product. It's the best. That's why you should buy it now, because it's never going to get better than it is. Well, maybe it is, but you should still buy it now.
Right.
That same email definitely starts with, hi, I am Leslie Venetz. I am your account manager.
100%. Yes, 100%. The number of emails I'm sure we all receive every week.
Yeah.
That sounds like that.
But Leslie, we strategically partner with our customers, and we're ranked number 1 on G2.
And Synergy.
So
You're definitely ranked 110%
we
on
got
Synergy.
it. Yes, we need to find some business synergies here. But what's interesting is like all of that messaging flows from this strategic problem that they haven't identified a reason to reach out today. And what you're pointing to is one of the reasons that maybe dead months don't exist, or the holiday season can be a really great time, or this Q4 period can be a great time to reach out, is your leadership is publicly committed to these objectives and you haven't reached them yet, and we can help you do that, so we should talk, which is chef's kiss. Are there other things that you see, like let me ask sort of blatantly, and then the deeper question is like, do you think dead months are a thing? And deeper than that, how can sellers navigate dead months, supposed dead months, to still generate some leads?
So I think dead months are a thing. That might not be the answer that you wanted, but like as somebody who's done, I don't know, 100,000 cold calls more probably, there are times where it is just, you're fighting an uphill battle to get anybody on the phone. Like it is true, right? August, I think is like, August is the only month I would truly say is like a dead month because people are getting their kids back into school. I've worked predominantly for British companies. They're just gone. Like they just literally aren't there.
Out of there. Yep.
So I do think that there are dead months. And I think that that is particularly true for like the SDR role. And then as you move through, like sort of less true for the full cycle role because maybe you're not getting as many meetings, but you can focus more on like nurture or being strategic during August. Less true if you're an AE. If you're an AE, there might be a month where you are taking fewer like disco demo calls, but there shouldn't really ever be a dead month in terms of being able to drive those meaningful like knock-on conversations. And I mean, like, yes, I get August is probably the month that you're bringing the least amount of revenue over the line, but like, what are you doing in August that's setting you up for that success to end Q3 and to go into Q4, create that like strong pipe for the next year? So yes and no, very straightforward answer there.
Love that. And this is why we have people on, because I'm like, hey, that's new. You know, it's new to me, and it's good to hear. And I saw Matt had dropped a chat of like definitely in marketing too. And I can think back to days running marketing campaigns where we'd have like slower months, and that's a whole other conversation for another day about what that actually means in terms of its contribution to pipeline. But what I felt I had a question, but then it just went out one ear. So Nick, do you have something useful to add?
I used to go and actually change, like I had quarters that I just knew were going to be better than others. And so I'd stack. And then I know that managers that are listening to this aren't going to like it, but let's be honest here. I would sandbag a couple and then put them into that first week of the next quarter. And I would strategically time my stuff based on my customers' timelines too. And I think the hardest part with this is, of course, Christmas season, you're out. But you know what? The thing I've noticed has changed over the past 2 years is they may not want to meet with me, but they're more than open to talking to me. I can shoot them a DM and start my disco in the DMs, and they'll have a conversation with me when it's convenient. And I can still get my answers so that I am ready when it comes time after like Christmas breaks out. They're like, hey, can we resume this second week of January? So I think, like you said, it's all about that creativity. I think where this falls apart outside of list building and like making sure executives keep their promises that's such a good one, Leslie. But Brandon had also talked about like having that buyer experience written out and designed. Because how many times have you done it and you just forgot to bring in procurement or forgot to bring in legal at the right time, and then they delayed it 2 months because you're like, oh crap, I should have brought them in and after that second or third disco call, it just got that process started.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like the people that we're talking to, right? I mean, this is applicable to anybody because even if you do have a really long sales cycle, you still need to be taking the actions today so that you have that like, strong Q1 23 pipe, or so that you don't feel so much pressure with your existing pipeline that you burn all those leads and don't have anything to carry over to 23. But I feel like the people that we are talking to today maybe aren't running enterprise sales cycles. Maybe they're more in like the SMB mid-market, like those sub 3 month or hopefully like sub 10 week sales cycles. And I also feel like we're talking to a lot of people that might be setting meetings and they're like, shoot, how do I get enough meetings in the pipe so that I can say that I've, been behind generating 2 million in revenue or whatever their target is.
Can I
Go
jump on that? Because this
Yeah.
is interesting. Because obviously the pushback that some sellers in that I don't know category, SMB, mid market, smaller deal sizes, smaller cycles, is that their quota arrangements are set up for a higher amount of volume. So if we take the previous example of finding the board priorities in the company, that's obviously a pretty significant amount of time to dive into that per account, and probably the sellers who are setting meetings, SDRs who are setting meetings, or full cycle AEs who are trying to build some final pipeline in Q4 don't have or don't think they have enough time to do that for every account that they need to reach out to. So, do you find that's true, and how would you navigate like the amount of time to dedicate for like each individual account versus running it as like a campaign across multiple different accounts?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So first off, like in Q4, this is the time to have a quality over quantity approach, like period. I know that feels very counterintuitive because we all have like a sales manager like staring over our shoulder being like, so how many calls did you make today? So I get it. Like there is such an internal and external pressure to just put up as many numbers as you can. But unfortunately, that creates a situation where you are spreading yourself so thin that you either cannot find the right people to reach out to, or you have found them, but you are not taking that extra 15, 20 minutes to find the right message for them. So, some of the things that we talked about at the beginning of the call were really focusing on people that you're sure have a fiscal year end in December. Like, frankly, if I was in an SDR full cycle role right now, I would not be reaching out to anybody that did not have a December year end. Like at least for the next 2 to 3 weeks, like fine, like around Thanksgiving, around the holidays, like pick it up again so you can set your 23 pipe. Right now, where I still have a chance to put things in the diary that can close this year, I would not waste time reaching out to people that are not set up like fiscally in their organization to make it an easy yes right now. So that is just one thing I would do straight away. I would push back and say it doesn't actually take that much time to find those right. Like let's continue on that example of like your CEO committed to 12% diverse vendors based on your last earnings call. I see you were at 8. Like let's talk about that. So make it easy on yourself. Go find a list of like 12 companies that won an award for that. So like, it's extra important to them. You have that like extra reason to reach out to them. And maybe 3 of those companies are in your territory. So it's only 3, right? But it's 3 companies that you can then create the same or relatively same message for. So you can do the research once and then only make very small pivots to have that like super relevant, highly specific reason for reaching out now instead of later. But I mean, I get it because I've been in the seat. And I know that it feels like, oh my gosh, I just need to go. I need to get these meetings. I need to get these demos done. I need to get these people contracts. But in reality, we kind of have to slow down a little bit to be able to go faster at the end of the year.
Love that. Love that. Nick?
I couldn't agree more. And if you're working too fast, you won't go and find those triggers either. So like, if you're selling a sales enablement tool, I'd be looking at companies, especially depending on what it's for. Is it for top of funnel or is it later in the funnel? If it's top of funnel, I'll be like, who's hiring SDRs right now? Because they've obviously prioritized top of funnel. Oh, and they want to hire them before the year end? Perfect. And like you could just go on LinkedIn Jobs and find all those companies that are in your area and just go there. But if you're working too fast, you would never think to do that because you're just, we're stressed and frustrated. We can't be creative. And that's what happens, I think, when our messaging turns into, hi, my name is Nick. Here's our solution. And we burn a list faster than we were able to build those bridges in the first place.
And, I think people that sell to salespeople Sales organizations have some of the easiest trigger events to identify, which is great, amazing. But like something I see that could use a little pivot is, let's say somebody gets a round of funding, they just got their Series A. And then people will reach out. The reason I'm reaching out is that I just saw you got your Series A. Here's what we solved. That's not the reason you're reaching out. You're reaching out because usually organizations that just got their Series A are struggling to understand how to allocate marketing and sales budgets to make an immediate impact. Like, would it be helpful to share two reasons so-and-so decided to put all their money in sales enablement? That's not exactly it, but like, that's the reason for reach out, not just like the fact that you're reiterating back to them. And that is especially important in Q4, because if you are doing that type of trigger event that's super easy, new headcount, series, whatever, everybody else is seeing that too. Everybody else is doing that same sort of generic, I saw you raised a round, congrats, let me tell you about my software. So it's actually going to hurt you more. Even though I know you're trying to do the right thing and using a trigger event, it's going to hurt you more if you don't really make sure that you lead with that like relevance and value instead of just like the repeating of a fact.
This is interesting because this is also why I feel like, some of the sales orgs we've had on the show previously, and like Laura Erdem at Dream Data talks about this a lot, where like when this is sort of a higher level point, but like when marketing is doing
it. Do you pronounce her name Laura, not Laura? And I've just been mispronouncing her name for like 2 years.
I think she'll take either, but the way her mom pronounces it, I understand, is Laura.
No.
Love you, Laura. Anyways, when the marketing team does their job, a lot of the times that opening conversation can be a referral back to a really good resource that the company already has. Like, this is one thing Nick and I have been talking about a lot in our own prospecting work, and then with the sales teams that we work with, is like, what resources are actually good conversation starters? What's a useful blog post? What's a useful, insightful PDF that opens up, that's not right, like especially on social, this is more important, but even on like traditional channels, like, is there something that you could provide that's like a nice little value deposit? That's like, hey, you're, even to your observation about the Series A, you're probably thinking about this problem because we work with a lot of companies who just raised their Series A. So we put together this resource, and a lot of people in your position, CFO, your position, founder, your position, whatever buyer you tend to talk to, found it really useful. You want to take a look and get that permission to send it along. And then that can kickstart a conversation. It doesn't, it's not like even just rushing to the meeting, like getting so eager to be like, I really want to get you on a call, when you could just, produce some value up front too. I think about that in some of the conversation openers too.
Any elite seller, like anybody that's like a consistent high performer, has figured out that you have to make deposits before asks. Like, you have to earn the right to a person's inbox, and then to their calendar, and then to their business. Like, there's a hierarchy of like showing that credibility and making those deposits. But maybe here's, I think, a good and relevant pushback for this topic. We do not have the time to do like a long-term deposit nurture right now. So like, what is the way that we can make maybe one deposit and then get in front of people today? And something that I've seen work really well is actually offer a call that's not a sales call. Like, offer a call that's just to, hey, like, I talk to VPs of sales all day long, every single day. Would it be useful for me to share 3 things that they're doing to help their teams, get over 100% of quota in Q4? And that's the conversation. The trick is, you cannot set that agenda and then get on the phone and start selling. That's just going to burn the bridge. But that does give you that opportunity, like the illumination questions, right? Like, it gives you that opportunity to start the conversation, ask those illumination questions, start peeling back the layers of the onion. And often that can lead to a person selling themselves, so that you then don't have to do the work. You're just sort of guiding them through the process to help them make a purchase that is right and is good for them.
I love that pushback, especially given Q4, where it's like, look, we don't have to just I don't mean this to be deeply offensive, but we don't have to become the used car salesman of our industries, right? We don't have to just constantly pressure to get to that meeting, but we also don't have the time to do what we might do in Q2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So here's something that
as
we
you guys
haven't
were talking
talked
about case studies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're talking about content. How many people have we seen that the case studies make the company the hero? And then there's other companies that have done it so well and they have actual testimonials from your like target buyers, and they're just sitting there waiting. You're like, pick me, because it's saying like this is what you could target for. Or like you had said, if we're running like a workshop series, a 30-minute workshop to go and bring that insight to them that they just never thought about, well, we could target those companies and we could probably find 2 to 3 main points in those case studies of the problems that they explicitly stated and use that. But how often does that just sit there and never gets put to work?
Yeah. And I mean, like 2 to 3 companies is all most people need right now, right? Like at the beginning of the year, you're trying to reach everybody in your territory. Right now, you are not trying to reach everybody. You are trying to get maybe 1, 2, 3 more deals across the line to get yourself into accelerator territory. So being really specific, like, you have one case study that is like just the case study. Okay, find the 10 people in your territory that are going to read that case study and like have to pick their jaw up off the table. Okay, now you can like do one set of work because you're going to have a fairly similar set of outreach to all of those people at the small pivots for title industry, whatever. Those are the 10 people you focus on. So instead of everybody, instead of qualified, instead of even ideal, like what is that pocket of people that are most likely to say yes and say yes right now? So here's something we haven't talked about: cold calling.
Yes.
Friends, if you are not picking up the phone to drive business right now, you are simply not doing enough to win. Oof. Yikes. I'm a bad guy.
Spicy.
Spicy. There it is. That's the clip. Wrap it up.
We're done here. That's all we needed.
Okay, but seriously, and I know that like especially you, Morgan, come from more of a marketer's perspective, and I think something that's extremely interesting and enough people aren't talking about it, in my opinion, is that, like, first and foremost, inbound as a strategy has never been tested during a recession. And we are, by all accounts, heading into a significant recession, right? And there is going to be a time, and we're already seeing it. Like Nick, you said that like people are already reporting back that they sort of had a tough Q3. I'm seeing it in my network as well. People are like, well, Q3 was abysmal. Anyways, we're just hoping for the best in Q4. So like a time is coming, if it's not already here for your organization, where that inbound is likely to dry up a bit. Why are people not already starting to figure out how to flex those cold outbound muscles, particularly those cold calling muscles? We're at a time in the year where we no longer have a privilege to wait for leads to come to us. We need to go meet our best customers where they are at, in my humble opinion.
Could not have said it better myself. Oh my God, Leslie, can we just clip that and send it to everybody? Like, it's true though. I think I'm not a huge fan of sales analogies. I have to be honest with you, but an SVP that we were talking with was talking about the difference between farmers and hunters and the skill of hunting during a recession, especially sort of if you got really specific about the kinds of hunters, like it is a skill, and you're dead on. I think sitting around on our laurels waiting for the next inbound lead to come to us who's supposedly hot and ready is not a sustainable way to build pipeline right now, let alone at the end of the year. Like gotta do some reps on the phones. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And like that doesn't mean abandon other touch points. Like that doesn't mean stop social selling or stop sending emails and making those strong deposits or trying to leverage referral. Like don't give up on other touch points. But if you're not adding outbound calls in addition to everything else you're doing, you're really missing a trick.
Mm-hmm.
got to prioritize that real time conversations. We don't have time to wait a week for someone to get back to a DM or an email or whatever. Like now is the time that you need to challenge them and be like, "Hey, is this a priority? You said that you were going to do this by the end of the year. Is that still something that's number one or number two, or was it somewhere else on the list? No, it is number one. Okay, what's that look like now? Like we need to have those real time conversations and then whether it's jump right into. Actually, that's a good question. Do you think that SDRs are at a disadvantage right now on the phones if they can't jump into discovery to drive that opportunity and qualify if they're only booking a meeting and that's their end result?
Really depends on the type of sale. Like if they're like booking a meeting that has a PLG motion to back it up, probably yeah, because the person then that's a bit of like weird gatekeeping to do. And I know we talk a lot about like frictionless buying processes, but as somebody that has come out of more of like a business intelligence agency consulting background, that could very well, and I've seen it happen many, many times, put the decision maker in a position where they have just enough information to make the bad decision. So I would not go hard on that one. I think that we need to be conscious about like not gatekeeping. We need to be conscious about helping the buyer buy as easily as they possibly can. But like on the other hand, it is our responsibility. We're the only one that's an expert on our product. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we're also creating a buying process that like educates them appropriately so that they can make the best decision for themselves.
I love that. Before we go too deep on this rabbit hole, we sort of like skipped over messaging a little bit, and I think it's important to dwell here for a second. So, because we talked at large about targeting and some different options for targeting, and I feel like it's like a chocolate or a candy store. Like there's so many ways to go about targeting. But once you have those fundamentals and you're turning to your channels, let's just kind of think about phone and email for a second, since we're talking about traditional channels, getting in front of people, calling them, whatever. What are your, what's your starting point for messaging? What are you thinking about and how are you articulating that to the buyer?
Yeah. So like general tenets, and I'm sure everybody is doing this, is like make sure that you're keeping it really short and keeping it really simple. I know that's something that we preach all year round, but think about how hectic you're feeling in Q4. Think about how much more hectic your life as somebody that is not like an executive decision maker is going to get the closer we get to the end of the year, the holiday season, etc. And then just try to put yourself in the shoes, as Jill Conrath would say, like the frazzled customer syndrome, right? Like put yourself in the shoes of that frazzled customer. So the shorter and the more to the point and the more value driven your messaging can be, the more likely it is to be read and replied to. So I feel like we can't really talk about that enough because I still get like 7-sentence emails from people. So somebody isn't listening.
Getting the novel. I like the novel where you have to scroll either in your inbox or in mails or whatever. And you're like, wow, who knew? Jane Austen,
I mean, and that's it though, right? Like if I pull up my phone and I can't read and decide without having to move my finger on the screen one time, whether or not your email is a good one to continue reading, let alone reply to, I'm just going to delete it. And if it's really spammy, I'm probably going to block you or unsubscribe. So like you've shot your shot and you did not do a good job. I also think that it's appropriate to be a little bit more forward with your calls to action in Q4. Like generally my advice, because I am a huge fan of long-term nurture campaigns with those deposits, to start with a CTA light. Would you like to learn more? Does this sound it? Like those sorts of things, and then graduate to like, shall we meet on Tuesday morning? I think it's okay to move those asks a bit earlier in your outreach in Q4 because there is a common understanding that we all are working against the same deadline. So be a little bit more forward. So short and simple. You have permission to be a little bit more forward in your asks for their time, so long as you are relevant, valuable, leading with deposits, etc. What else? I don't know. Nick, what would you add?
I really like Will Allred's observation, why it matters,
Mhm.
interested. And the one thing I've noticed that I've been responding to is messages that look like a text message. They kill all the formalities. There's none of the fluffy crap. It's Leslie, did you see this? Hey, Leslie, should we go and do this? Like it's almost like your friend just talking to you. So it shortcuts all of the stuff. And you're like, yes or no. But it's really quick to process. But it automatically gets a reply. Because if you don't know what they're talking about, you'll look into it and then I'll respond. But then it starts a conversation. And then I'm like, this sounds like more than just like a text conversation. Let's book a meeting.
Interesting. Ooh, I would A/B test that depending on industry. I feel like that could work really well with sales and marketing people, but as somebody that sold to the C-suite, I feel like that would be a surefire way to get blocked or maybe get a reply email that would be like, "Don't pretend like you know me." So I love that. But maybe just A/B test it, folks, so that you don't burn bridges.
And I think like how I would personally use this is with below the power line to earn a referral or an introduction with C-suite. So like you're doing your account research to, dot the I's and cross the T's. So when you do your executive summary, it's bulletproof. And so I would do that and then go get the introduction because then I've probably already quantified the pain to a certain degree as well. And so I'm going in there ready. And I think this is the other thing that we haven't talked about yet is a lot of sales messages I get require me to do the work. Do we need this? Why do we need this? Why are you reaching out? So what? Where I've seen some of the sellers that do like those really short and sweet, it's like, holy crap, I can't believe I missed that. Yeah, no, like let's book a meeting next week, or actually can you meet this week? That's really important. Because you're like bypassing, they've done the work, they've built that mental clarity into it with an observation, or like they realize how painful it is if you miss that loss aversion bias, and boom, now you're in. And so I think, playing to that is that loss aversion, like before the end of the year. And even Adam had said, like, use it or lose it CapEx funding. Like those things where the loss aversion is so strong, I would prioritize that because, and Morgan probably could speak to that from his days in public works where they spent money just so they didn't lose it.
Yeah.
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 I mean, if you have visibility as to how they budget, like if they do like a zero-based budget or they have like use it or lose it budget, people could simply spend money just so that they don't get a lower budget next year. That's kind of rocky because if you are in a subscription model, then you're pretty much setting your customer success team up for failure. So pluses and minuses there. How bad do you need that accelerator money? Are you going to be with the company next year? No, I'm kidding. Don't screw over your customer success managers. But Nick, on your point, we're talking about like that like really clear synopsis of value. Nobody talks to customers more than our customer success managers, right? Like our SDRs probably talk to prospects, to like whatever ICP is the most, us as AEs the second most. Nobody talks to customers more than the CSMs. So go and ask them what the number one and number two reason are that people are renewing with you. Having that visibility is going to be able to help you trim down that qualified to ICP to Q4 target list. It's going to help you create messaging that doesn't need to be like one-off messaging for every single person. You can, like draw conclusions that allow that messaging to be like replicated or pivoted for multiple people. And it's going to be simple and to the point and value driven. Like it's naturally going to be all of those things that we mentioned. And then before we move on from voicemails, or from phone calls, I should say, a question I get all the time is, should I or should I not leave a voicemail? And the answer is yes, leave a voicemail unless you're doing a super heavy touch campaign. Like if you're calling them a lot, like please don't leave a voicemail every day. That is creepy, very creepy, sort of like the guy that keeps coming into my Instagram DMs asking for foot photos. Don't do that. Don't do it. Nobody likes it.
Don't do it.
But 2 voicemails a week, I think that's fine. Here's the catch though, and Nick, you just brought this up, like don't make me do the work. I am not calling you back, not now, not ever. Do reference a LinkedIn message you sent me, an email, like message that deposit that you gave me, that case study, that white paper, that like clarified insight that's so valuable. Draw me back to another one of the touch points instead of leaving your number and expecting somebody to call you back and then being like, voicemails don't even work. Well, you're not using them right. So I would add that important point of clarification.
I love that.
One thing you touched on that was so good about talking to CS is they're usually in service tickets or emails. It's written and captured. And they're sitting on a gold mine of information. Because if you start asking them, like, who did you love working with? Who saw the value in the first 30 days? Who got excited and told everybody in the company and like really like became power users? Hey, do you have any emails from them? Every time we've done something like that, they always have emails and you can always go back to, and they're like, when they put the service ticket in or when they're talking to them, they'll tell you the exact problem. And so you can pull out those attributes to build lists or even just like really crystal clear messaging. And of course, CS is going to support you because they want more of those companies, because you could even ask them too, like, who should we never sell to again? And they'll have an answer for you.
Mm-hmm. You should never sell to the guy that's just trying to get rid of his CapEx budget and told me already that he's not going to renew next year. Okay, whoever said that was a good idea. I don't know where that comment went.
It was
but
great.
It's Adam. Hi, Adam. Nice to see you again. No, that's an exceptional idea. I'm being funny.
Yeah, I love that. So the other thing that kind of I want to fold in here a little bit, and we've like briefly touched on it. We sort of like added it as sprinkles on the dish, and I'd prefer to make it as an appetizer. Is about mindset and about like how it's not really. It's like hardly Sunday scaries. It's like quarterly scaries. It's like, oh my gosh, I have quota to hit. I desperately need these leads. I need these meetings to be booked. Mm-hmm. And you're telling me to slow down. You're telling me to be not, super patient, but like what ingredients do you see really help sellers tackle this Q4 mindset where they can say, all right, I know it's a lot, but I'm going to get there, or I'm going to do my best this quarter to get there. Like what are those fundamental things for sellers?
Yeah. Okay. 3 thoughts. First thought, shameless plug for a live I'm going to be on this afternoon with our good friend Amelia, Alexis Scott, Hannah Ajikawa, Shawanda Roberts, and it's about using soft skills in Q4 to bring buyers to the table. Mm-hmm. So like that, right? Like That's number 1, make it about them, not about you. That's the sort of strap line of it. Number 2, I'm going to share a story, because the weirdest thing that's happening to me right now is somebody who has always been in a quoted environment. For a long time, it was monthly, not quarterly. So talk about like, dang, pressure. So I'm my own boss now. And one of the like transitions that I didn't anticipate being so meaningful is I set myself an annual goal. So I just don't have quarterly quotas anymore. And particularly in Q3, when people were losing their dang minds. And I was like, oh, what do I do? Like, no, what am I supposed to do this week? Like, I'm stress-free. I guess I'll go for a hot girl walk. Like, I don't know. So I think like part of the mindset, and this isn't helpful now. So number 3, I'll give a real answer. This isn't helpful now, but like part of the mindset is like, did you not know Q4 was coming?
Right.
Like, why were you not preparing for this all year? And like, yes, I understand that there are situations where you can do everything in your power and still have be looking at a tough Q4. You have to understand a lot of organizations weight Q4 quota. Like in my last role, it was 40% of my overall quota. So I understand that there are nuances, but like anybody who's been in sales for more than a year, like can understand what they have in front of them in Q4. So they should be starting those crazy long-term nurtures on accounts that said they were really interested last year, but the right time to meet with them isn't until August. Like that should have been started in January. And so in August, they like couldn't wait to meet with you because of how much information you shared that was so valuable. Like
Mm-hmm.
you should have your whole list of people that said, man, if you can get to me on November 1, like it's gravy. So, but I mean, that's not the most helpful answer today, but like we can do it, folks. Let's set ourselves up for success now, this time next year. So I think right now, right, like it might be frustrating to hear like go slower so you can go faster. Really practical advice is like pick up the damn phone. Am I allowed to curse on these things? I don't.
Oh yeah, please.
Okay, I was like, it's too late. We're live. Pick up the phone, and I know that probably off the back of this, there's going to be at least one person on LinkedIn that writes a post being like, well, phone isn't my strongest channel. And so my manager told me that I should just like stick with what I'm best at. And that's awesome that you have such a supportive manager. Your prospect doesn't care what channels are best for you. Like that's the brass tacks. So if you are making it about you and what channels you prefer and where you have the most fun, like, cool, you probably like your job a lot. But that's not where your prospects are always going to want to be. And there was even some data that came out from Outreach earlier this year that if you're calling at the VP level or above, I wish I could remember. Well, we'll have to look it up and we'll drop it in the comments. But it was something like 68% of VP level and above executive prefer their first touch point with a salesperson to be over the phone. Right? So it's like a bunch of millennials and like Gen Z kids being like, I'm amazing at social selling. Like, yeah, me too. My prospects don't care though. Like if I'm not picking up the phone and calling them where they want to be reached, I'm not going to get their attention.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's one thing.
Just do it.
I'd almost want to know the ages on those executives. It'd be like 50 plus.
Yeah.
I mean, VP level, probably at least like what's the generation that's older than me? What's like 1 year older than millennials?
Gen X's.
Gen X?
Yeah, so I think like Gen X and older, right? Is that's going to be the majority of executive management. So it makes sense. Like they are really comfortable on the phone. So I mean, that's like a real harsh truth. I feel like I've just been raining on people's parade. Team, I swear I'm like a joyful and happy person. And I guess it's Q4 and I felt like you needed to just hear it from me today.
It's actually really good. It's refreshing and it's good, Leslie. Don't worry. Because sometimes I think about this too. And this is true in all kinds of work, right? Sometimes it's, oh shit, I need to do this. And like, you just got to do it. And it's not going to be a win every single time. Like I wish every marketing campaign that I've launched in my career was sunshine, rainbows and unicorns every time. But obviously that's not the case. And the same is true with every call you pick up or every sales campaign you run too. It's just like, you got to do it. It's Q4 and we got to you don't have to make it rain dollar bills, but we got to go generate that for companies. So I mean, sure, it's a harsh truth, but I do like that. Like part of the mindset in Q4 is, all right, let's just go do this. Let's just make this happen.
Do the hard things.
Yeah, it's time to do the hard things. I love that. Nick,
great.
I was just thinking, one of the things that I used to do is I used to ask myself, who gave me explicit permission to call their cell phone? And I'll prioritize them in Q4, texting or calling, and to sit down with them.
So, Leslie, as we near the end of this hour, are there any other things that we haven't talked about today yet that you're like, oh shoot, I want to make sure to cover, or anything else that's sort of popped up in your mind when it comes to generating leads in Q4 that'll close?
I mean, I feel like I need to wrap up with like a motivational quote. My word. But okay, so maybe that is it though. Like really, like the thing is do the hard things. Like meet your prospects where they're at, even if it sucks. Like take the time to go from qualified to ICP to like Q4 target, and then ensure that your outreach is relevant and valuable, which is also a hard thing because it requires patience and it requires slowing down to speed up. So like do those hard things. And then I think the flip side of that is like also still take care of yourself. Like, we are in sales, we are not heart surgeons. It would definitely suck to miss your Q4 target. I get it, but that's not like the end all be all. So if you are panicking, if you are feeling stressed, if you are feeling overwhelmed, like, you are not in a silo. Go to your manager if you trust them, ask for help. Go to your colleagues, go to people that are cross-functional, like, go to product, go to your CSMs, go to your community. Like, Nick, to your earlier point, like, we are here and we just give advice away for free. Like, don't just sit and stew in it and feel overwhelmed and burn yourself out trying to get to Q4 quota by yourself. Do the hard things, but you don't have to do them in a silo.
Love it. Put it on a motivational poster. Slap a John F. Kennedy thing. We will go to the moon and do the other hard things. That's what they kept on popping into my head when you were talking about doing the hard things. I don't know why. We will hit quota and do the other hard things. Anyways. This is why I love Power Hours. We just get to have a bunch of fun. You had mentioned a live show later today, which people can check out. But if they want to find your brilliance, your hot takes, and your spiciness, where else can people find you?
Hot takes abound. The hottest takes are on TikTok because I just go full tilt. Yeah. So you can find me there at Sales Tips Talk. But I also share daily on LinkedIn. So follow me, send me an invite to connect on LinkedIn. Awesome.
Love it. Nick, you want to close this out?
Leslie really likes when you connect with her at the blank request and then pitch her right after. It's like, it's got a 99.9% close rate. So
higher, 99.9%.
You'll get a free lesson.
Yeah.
Apologies in advance.
I'll just reply back with that gift that's like the dog sitting in a room of fire that says everything is fine here. So I'll keep that queued up. Thank you, Nick.
Anyways, Nick, do you actually want to close this out?
Is it too loud right now? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you should.
I can hear you fine.
Okay. So Leslie already started this, so I'll just tag on. It's 2022, guys. It is no longer okay for us to suffer in silence in sales. If you need help, if you can't get it from management, if you can't get it from your coworkers, LinkedIn, social, digital communities, get on Slack. Find that support yourself. Get into the comments. DM any of us. We're here to support you. You just need to ask. Don't have to buy anything. You just have to do the hard step of reaching out. We want to support you. And we want to see you enjoy the profession of sales like we do. So thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you check out Leslie's other live today. And yes, this is recorded on this LinkedIn event or on YouTube. But thank you so much, everyone. Wish you the best.
Thanks, everyone.
And happy quota.